Okay, so now we're recording. You can ask a question.
Ask a question. I read the Ramakant. Can everybody, okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I read the Ramakant. I looked over the Ramakant book again after the talk that I had after our talk yesterday. I mean last Tuesday, and there's just a couple of phrases there I don't really understand, and one of them is prior to beingness. I mean, isn't this also about being and just being in this moment here? Uh, Being, we'll explain what being is, but it's certainly a good space to be in. But when you say prior to beingness, what does that mean?
Prior to beingness, before the spirit clicked with the body and this whole world came about and you started having the idea that this body is me, I'm in a world, prior to beingness was just your selfless self, your formless self. And prior to beingness, you're when you remain with your selfless self, that sense of presence, then all these world that's illusion is just passing and coming and going, and you remain with yourself. But prior to beingness was before you had any experience of yourself.
Well, how can I ever remember such a state?
It's a negative state of all the things that are happening. It's not this, not this, not this, not this. So like prior to forming a question, there was a silence, and then there's a stirring where a question's asked and there's actually speaking. But in that, if you just remain, even when you're asking the question, you can remain internally silent and internally in that sense of presence. And because you're the knower of that sense of presence, all this form world, when presence clicked with the body, you begin to see the world, you have the body relations and your ideas that you're in a world with the body, but it's not true. Prior to beingness, before you knew anything about yourself, you're that sense of presence, that knower. It's formlessly using all this form and providing all the activities.
Yeah. So I've been thinking in the sense that if I look at myself, I see my form. Looking at you, looking at all people around me, I see their forms. But yet, if I then is a conglomeration of thoughts, feelings, sensations, emotions, I realize that these are formless. I mean, you can't say that your thoughts are formless. Your emotions that come and go, they're formless. So
but again, prior to beingness, there was no emotion. You're viewing and experiencing emotions now because you have a body with mind, ego, intellect. Prior to beingness, there was no emotion because you had no instrument to measure the emotions. And while you're using the body, emotions, as long as you're not involved in them, the video that I just posted today, if you don't get involved in the emotions, they come and go and they're a passing thing. It's only when you're involved in them as my emotions and they have some kind of importance to me that the trouble comes.
So emotions then are body identified.
Yeah. I mean, you have to use an instrument in order to feel. And prior to beingness, that's why Maharaj says how you were prior to beingness and how you will be after leaving the body. That's the reality. All of this appearance in the nothing, which is appearing as something, is the illusion. There's nothing there. It appears to be there, but it's not. And then you start, and using the body form, you start to believe in these feelings and these sensations and that this is important and that's important, and nothing is. Because prior to beingness, before spirit clicked with the body, you had no knowledge of yourself, no knowledge of the world, no knowledge of emotions, good things, bad things, good people, bad people, jobs. All of that was only after spirit clicked with the body. Therefore, it's absolutely illusion. You remain with your formless sense, and all of this comes and goes on that.
Are you saying that there is a nothingness about any appearance? That the appearance is it's just nothing? It may not be an appearance, but we call it an appearance because nothing is happening?
That's correct. All of this appearance is just your attention is you're looking at it, but it's not here. Again, the dream analogy, you, the dreamer, are seeing all of this world and all of these things and all of this stuff, but you're absolutely not in it. And it's not true. When you wake up, it's gone. And the same with prior to beingness, there's nothing except yourself. And see, you use this body instrument to know yourself in a real sense. And once you know yourself in a real sense, then all the form world and all this activity automatically loses any interest to you. Yet you can still perform your activities in this, but you're remaining with your selfless self. All of this is just an appearance. It comes and goes, and it has no, whether you get really, and you'll see this in different times, you'll be really focused in on something, and then, you know, your attention will get torn away or whatever, and that something that seemed so important is now past. Like 5 days ago, whatever you were thinking was really important is no longer important because it comes and goes. It's only the attention and the believed in idea that I am somebody else that is doing this something that's very important because there are others depending on me or something like that. And of course, you still do your job, do your duties, do everything to the best of your ability, but all the while remaining with your selfless self. And then thoughts are gone, even if they come and go, and even if there are thoughts, there won't be any interest in the thoughts because the thoughts are about the illusion, and you absolutely can discriminate the difference. When you remain as this formless sense of presence, you're the knower of that. It's a formless knowledge, and this form world then has no interest whatsoever.
So any appearance has no reality to it?
That is correct. Because it comes and goes. That sense of presence is kind of the perfume that lets you know you exist. And if you remain with that sense of presence as the knowledge of existence formlessly, without adding anything to that knowledge of existence, then that's it. You're finished. Go ahead. That's self-realization, to know this is okay. I'm all of this is still occurring. All these thoughts are still coming and going if they are. Feelings can come and go, whatever it is. Maharaj in the video, he used the perfect analogy of a river, and the river is flowing, and you go to get some water, and whatever's flowing in the river, it might have leaves or sticks or whatever. You get your water and you're finished. That's it. Just like the thoughts or the feelings. You take a feeling, you use it, and that's it. It's finished. There's no thinking about it. There's no nothing that needs to be done because it's illusion.
So what's the difference between the selfless self and simply a detached observer?
I'm sorry, the selfless self and what?
I mean, what's the difference here between the selfless self and simply being a detached observer?
Well, again, it's the same. The selfless self is just you're remaining without any content. Like Nisargadatta Maharaj says, you remain with the I am and don't add anything to it. Just stay there. Remain with yourself, and that experience of yourself, because you have a body that's an instrument that can measure this sense of presence that you are the knower of, then you know, you remain with that. And let all this world come and go. Let all these things do what they wish to do. You just remain with yourself, and you'll start to see that that's the reality anyway. That all this mind, ego, intellect believed in are there are functional organs, like Maharaj says, that allow you to pick and choose different various thoughts, and that's it. There's nothing of any substance, nothing of any importance. You remain with you. You're not attracted to any of these passing things because you just stay there. Remain with that I am, remain with your selfless self, remain with that sense of presence. And all these things come and go. That does not. You remain with yourself. Just as if you were inside a dream and you realized you were the dreamer, but you're still dreaming. You're inside the dream and you're a character in the dream and you're moving around, but things are not so, you don't take the touch. Everything's very light because in reality, you're you. You're everything. You're all things. This sense of presence that cannot be cut, cannot be divided, cannot die, and was never born. And you know this when you remain with your selfless self. And as long as you remain with your selfless self, then everything can just be as it is.
Yeah, there are all these words that we use seem to be over and over again. So I'm just looking for words that can say the same thing without using necessarily the key words that we use all the time. When I use words, just be the observer of all these things, all this. If
Well,
that
in your true state, in your true state, there's nothing to observe. In the reality, there's nothing to observe, and you are all there is. So you are in your true sense, when you know yourself in a real sense. Observation doesn't really make sense other than it's just occurring. You might be observing, just like you watch clouds pass in the sky, is the same that you would be an observer. But you're not actually taking a position as an observer, because everything you're observing is absolutely false. You have no interest in it whatsoever. And if you do, then an I am somebody else that believes that they are and the world is, has some kind of interest in something.
I hear you. One last question. You see, there's no interest in all of this, all what is appearing in front of you. And on the other hand, glimpse of.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. You said, on the other hand, what?
I'm saying, on the other hand, when you have glimpses of being consciousness itself, then as consciousness, you are all these things. You are all this.
Actually, you're just providing the ability for all this to appear.
Huh?
You're providing the ability for all of this to appear. But the idea is this body consciousness, it doesn't have to be there. And until you have this body consciousness, none of this world is there. And prior to beingness and after leaving the body, that's your reality. There's nothing to see, nothing to know, nothing other than your own selfless self, which you know is always there, because inside this appearance, inside this illusion, you're able to use this illusory form to know yourself in a real sense, knowing that you always are. Where all experience ends, where all the world ends, where all thoughts end, where all feelings end, there you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you go through, when you have glimpses of that, the person disappears. The whole person disappears. But you don't watch all of this as the illusion. You become all of this without the body mind. That's gone.
Well, I'm sorry, you cut out.
Yeah. It's somebody else to talk.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the rest of it. It cut out suddenly.
It's kind of a bad connection, I think.
What's wrong?
Yeah, I guess if you want me to get up, no, I don't know.
Get right and see. I don't know why it's doing this.
What I meant to say is that called glimpses, right? In which the person disappears. The person mind disappears. It's just gone. Vicky Dreyer is no longer there. In that state, I then feel like I become all this. I'm all this that you say there's no meaning to it. I guess there's no meaning in it, but you are just all of this in that state. So in a sense, it just, I haven't given it a thought if it's all meaningless or anything. It's just alive with all of this. You are everything that you see in front of you. The tree, the trash can, the bird, whatever. It's all you. It's this complete oneness.
Yes.
With all there is. So, on the other hand, how that fits with being the screen or being the background, I just don't know. I just, I'm just speaking from my own experience.
Yeah, and remaining there. Because you're inviting the attention of the invisible listener with the mantra. When you're remaining with yourself, when you're inviting the attention, you continuously pull the attention in. You're seeing outward, but directing the attention inward. And what you just described is that experience that you will have as you're inviting the attention of the invisible listener. But again, that's an experience. So there's an experiencer, which is a good progressive step. But the true reality, and when you know yourself in a real sense and it just clicks, then the true reality is that even the experience, there's nothing. You're there prior to beingness. There's no instrument to know. There's no knowledge. There's no knowing of anything. There's nothing other than your own self, which is a formless knowledge that only knows when there are objects that seemingly appear, and that sense of presence when the spirit clicks with the body and you say I, and then the whole world is there, and then the world gradually kind of rolls back until it's just that sense of existence without anything else. And then everything here is just the talk that's occurring inside of that formlessness. And that sense of existence without adding anything onto it, without adding any person or any, just I am alone. That's it. The sense of existence without having to label. The sense of existence without allowing it any further than the sense of existence on which, that sense of existence on which all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the ideas are layers on. And again, with mantra, slowly, silently, permanently, it erases all the illusory concepts until just that sense of existence. It invites the attention of the invisible listener. You remain there.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
So when she was talking about form, it occurred to me that maybe actually form isn't really form. It's only form to the body mind, which is a type of form. So it's like form is only form to form. But if you try,
Again, once you know yourself in a real sense, there's no thinking about these things because it's all illusion. You're thinking and talking about the illusion just to keep yourself away from the sense of existence without any additions.
but when I see the truth of what I'm saying, it actually, I connect with what's beyond form.
But remember, there's no truth and no false. Everything in the illusion is false, and yet there can be appearances of truth. The idea is just to remain with your selfless self. Like Maharaj says, meditation, it's the only source. Erasing the illusion slowly, silently, and permanently. Remaining, once that sense of presence is felt, that's all the attention that's needed. You just keep diving into that sense of presence, that sense of existence. For a time, the sense of existence will mix with the illusion, but then slowly, as your attention is only on the sense of existence without these other things, this illusion falls away because the false can't maintain itself and the true is always there. So if you maintain that sense of existence, automatically you blast all the books, all the spiritual teachings, all the gurus, all the world, everything that you know, because the spiritual knowledge, as Maharaj says, is just to know yourself in a real sense, of which you need no concepts. You need no concepts whatsoever to know yourself in a real sense. As a matter of fact, every concept, every thought, every stirring of a fact or an idea where you're acquiring information or you're requiring an answer is leading you away from yourself, this sense of existence on its own, without anything else touching it. And every time that stirs and goes out, concepts and a whole world is created. Remaining with your selfless self, remaining with the sense of existence without anything else touching it, and all these things that are coming and going, you know, are appearing on that spontaneous presence, that sense of existence, that I am. And without all of that, prior to beingness, prior to clicking with the body, there was no knowledge of yourself. You didn't begin to know yourself until you clicked with the body. Then there was confusion that I am a body in the world. Now, through the spiritual journey that you've created this little story for yourself, you've gone out and read books and seen a master and done this and that, only so that you can discard all of that and remain with yourself. Because you, in the form of Sri Ramakant Maharaj, came and said, okay, it's finished now. Repeat the mantra, we'll erase all this illusion. That was nice for a time. Now you'll just remain with your selfless self. You'll still be using a body, much like you're using clothes, but you'll no longer be attached to any of the worldly attachments. You'll know that all your friends and family are just there for the body. You can love them and have care and compassion for them, but you're not so attached because they're dream people, just like this dream body that you're using. So therefore, they come and go, and there's no interest, and you're fine.
You're gonna keep reminding, or I need you to keep reminding me of that.
Yeah, you just remain with your selfless self. You know, forget about Ramana Maharshi, forget about I am that, forget about all those things. Those were the little stepping stones that brought you to yourself. It's like Hansel and Gretel. You, the selfless self, left the little breadcrumbs for you to follow, and now you're done. You followed the breadcrumbs, you're here. Now all you have to do is just remain there. Because all this illusion, all these things that you've read about that are not true, you've read the books that says the world is illusion. So now you just have to remain with your selfless self, be strong, have courage, and see, oh yeah, the world is absolutely illusion. It comes and goes. I remain with my selfless self. These thoughts that used to trouble me, these feelings that I used to really get involved with, no longer concern me because they're appearing on that sense of existence, and I just keep wiping that sense of existence off, keeping the mirror clean so I only see myself. I don't see the specks which, when the light hits it, create worlds and ideas and concepts. And then I have to ask questions about how to remove the specks of dust from the mirror that are appearing as objects, but it's only the light that's hitting the specks of dust that's creating the object that my attention is being drawn to, and I'm asking someone how to remove these objects, when in reality it's just a speck on a mirror.
Could you say that presence is not its projection? Basically, it's all those specks, it's projection, and presence is just a sense of being, period.
Yeah, without anything added to, without anything. All the things that are appearing are just dancing, the light is dancing off of different objects and things that your attention is on. The mirror, when it's clean, there's no objects appearing, no dancing. And of course, in the real, you're here. Like Maharaj said in the last video, The world is there, your family's there, your friends are there, your job is there, but you know, you're not taking the touch, you're taking it very lightly because you know yourself in a real sense. You know, my son, yes, I care for him, I love him, he's my son. But the reality is, he is related to this body that I am not. I'm the sense of existence, formlessly aware, and all of this is in myself. So if you want to say, who's my son? Technically, every body that's out there is a son or daughter of myself, but they're just like the dreamer. When he's projecting the dream, you could say he's the creator of all of those people, of all of those houses, of all of those everything, and it's by his power that everything happens. But nothing's happening. It's just a dreamer dreaming. It's a projection that is being observed by something that is in reality a non-thing. Observing things using the appearance, like we said, the specks of dust in the light that are appearing.
That's too bad you didn't get the whole talk about your son. You know what I mean? It's disturbances there.
When the Sagadatta says that consciousness is a fraud, he's not. It doesn't mean that the presence is a fraud. It's just the projection of the presence that's the fraud, or the false, or the mirage, basically. That sense of presence is known by the formless knower, correct? Is that? But that goes off eventually. You know, kind of like, I guess, the formless knower is the sense of existence, the awareness of all this appearance, that all is only an appearance. But that knower goes off eventually once there's no body out of which the knower can know.
Consciousness is a fraud because it's a stirring in the nothing. And in that stirring of nothingness, consciousness is projecting and creating this whole appearance, this whole dream world, if you want to speak of it that way. And presence, don't get hung up on the words, because remember, again, like Maharaj says, we created the words. Presence, water, bottle, computer, door, we created the words. So all of these are just pointing to the fact of that formless existence, spontaneous presence, invisible, anonymous, unidentified identity. Anything that's not those things is not you. If you could describe anything other than invisible, anonymous, unidentified, invisible, unidentified identity, if you can say, oh, that's what this is, then you cannot. So what all of that is yourself, because you are attribute-less. So if you're attribute-less, all attributes appear through you, I guess you could say. That sense of existence, once you know yourself, then all of these attributes are added on. But even that sense of knowing is an attribute in the attribute-less. And the only thing that it's there is so that in this body form, you can know yourself in a real sense, using this attributes in the appearance, in the consciousness, which is a fraud, so that when all of that goes away, you know you are.
But that knowing is an attribute itself, correct? That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Because there's no, again, if you're everything and all things, and there's nothing other to know, there's no instruments of knowledge, there's no instruments of knowing, there's no mind, ego, intellect, there's no body, there's no world, there's no elements, there's no nothing other than your selfless self. And that's why Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramakanta Maharaj says, accept your selfless self. There's no God, no Brahman, no Atman, no Paramatman, no master. Nothing is there. how you were prior to beingness and how you'll be after leaving the body is the reality. The something that's appearing in that nothing is the illusion. Prior to having a body, you were formless. After leaving the body, you were formless. You are always going to be formless. Right now, you're using a body form, but you're the formlessness using the body form in the illusion of form that's arising from the attributeless unmanifest.
And to do that, doing the mantra correctly is simply remaining with oneself as one was prior to beingness, correct? Like basically that's what
doing the mantra now at this stage, I would say, is listening, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, listening or paying attention to the one that's listening to the mantra as it's being recited. In other words, don't activate yourself as a doer of mantra. Be the listener, listening to the mantra as it's being, truly as it's being naturally done in the breathing, but you, the selfless self, using body as an instrument to hear the mantra running. Instead of a doer doing the mantra, you're now observing the mantra, listening to the mantra. Inviting the attention of the invisible listener has been done at some state by, we've been doing this mantra now for 1 year. If you're even, if you're involved in this mantra, then now the invisible listener, you're paying attention from the point of the invisible listener, listening to the mantra being recited, because you're no longer a body using mantra to try and invite the attention of the invisible listener. You are now the invisible listener listening to the mantra as it's being recited in the form. You're no longer body. You're the invisible listener listening to the mantra, just like as if this body was a flute and you're listening to the musical notes coming from the flute. That's as involved as you are with doing the mantra. From the position of the listener. Detaching from this body as something of importance. It's an instrument. Just like the flute produces music, the body can produce things, move around and do this kind of stuff. But you're the invisible, unidentified, anonymous identity, the invisible listener that's using this body form. But now you are to consider that this form is nothing more than an instrument, and you're the invisible, anonymous, unidentified identity, the invisible listener, using this instrument. This is no longer the label of John or Andrew or Trish or Kathleen. These are just the instruments that we are using. We're no longer concerned with how the instrument does or if thoughts come about the instrument. We are remaining as our selfless self that is using the instrument. But that's all it is. And you give it as much thought as you would using a fork or using a hammer, or, you use a hammer, you pay attention to the hammer, but you're not so involved in the hammer. Any thoughts about this is discarded, because now you're the witness of these thoughts. You're in the invisible formlessness on which these thoughts are appearing, and you formlessly can use the instrument of mind, ego, intellect to pick a thought and then activate it through this instrument of body and then throw it away. That's it. As of now, you have no interest in the form that you're using other than it's a useful instrument for you who are formless, and a formless something has to use some sort of an instrument in order to move about. Just like you see in the movies where they have those hands and they're mechanical hands and they're working through there, but you're back here, same thing. You're the selfless self, and this is the instrument that you're using to perform these different various things, but none of it is attracted or attached to you.
Isn't that just like the lucid dreaming? And when you're in a dream and there's awareness that you that you are dreaming, you recognize the truth of that. So the same way in this reality, you're also doing that.
Well, once you know yourself in a real sense, that's the truth. So you remain there. And then, and like Maharaj says, once you know yourself in a real sense, just like you've been called Kathleen and it's Kathleen, you don't sit there and keep saying, I'm Kathleen, I'm a woman, and to be a woman is like this, or I should respond like a woman would respond because I'm a woman. No, the spontaneous conviction is that sense of presence, that invisible formlessness, that invisible, unidentified, anonymous identity is my selfless self. I am that. So if I am that, I'm not this. I can't be any of this because I'm that. And all of these are merely instruments. And not to think about it, not to try to see, the mind so desperately wants to grab a hold of something to say, this is like what it is. No, again, formlessly using this instrument. From this moment forward, there's no mantra being done. There's a mantra being listened to by the invisible listener. And remaining with that sense of existence without any add-ons. There's no longer any illusion to clear because you're seeing yourself in a real sense. Therefore, whenever illusion seems to be bothering you, you automatically know, well, but this is not myself. These things are appearing on that spontaneous presence, and I have no interest in that at all. How does the invisible listener, invisible, anonymous, unidentified identity, worry about things that are visible, that are identifiable, and that have form? Is the air worried about the birds that are flying in it? No. Just like Maharaj says, if you're all you want to compare yourself to sky or space. And there's nothing. Use the form, do your job, do your duties. This is now an instrument. The instrument is labeled only so it can be differentiated from other different instruments, just like hammer, just like fork. But there's no other concern about it. There's no thought about it. You know, oh, I don't know how this is going to work out. Well, this is the instrument I'm using. I'm the formlessness. So, and believe me, it's just going to come and go. And there's no attention paid to it. So even something that's, quote, troubling, because like Maharaj says, good things and bad things are going to happen as long as you are formed and you've clicked with this body, and this body is going to undergo good things and bad things. But you're not concerned. You're not going to deeply dive in and say, oh my God, this terrible thing is happening. What's going to happen? Because you remain with yourself. When you remain with just that self, that selfless self, that sense of existence, then all of this illusory world passes through just like clouds in the sky. Sun comes, then clouds come, then sun comes again.
It's a good explanation.
No attachment. There's no attachment.
All attachments are related to the body. Formlessness can't have attachments. How? How can the invisible, anonymous, unidentified identity have attachments to anything? And if it does, then it's using something and believing in something that could have attachments to it. Space has no attachment to anything. It can have many objects inside of it or no objects inside of it. It's not depressed because there's no objects, you know, or whether there's a party in the space or whether there's crying in the space. Space is totally unaffected. In order to have any of this, you have to take on attributes. And in order to take on attributes, you have to have the sense of existence with things added on to it. And again, the knowingness is that this sense of presence that I'm feeling using body form, that I am the knower of, the formless knower. So I know when this body falls, that's still there. I always am, but there's just nothing to know because it's just myself. But I'm not concerned about that. And see, I'm not going to think or dream up anything because there's nothing there. I don't have the instrument of ego, mind, and intellect. The only way I can dream and imagine and pretend is when I am using the instrument that comes along with the organs of ego, mind, and intellect. Those are the instruments that this instrument uses when it wants to imagine or create.
What did you mean when you said take on the attributes?
Well, another, again, prior to being this, and like, you know, you're formless. After leaving the body, you're formless. There's nothing. This appearance is the attributes that you're taking on, these attributes of something. I am somebody else in a world experiencing things, using mind, ego, intellect as instruments to think and move about and all of that. That's the illusion. Those are the attributes that you're taking on. As soon as, see, if you remain formless existence, any attribute that's an attribute. Knowing you are is an attribute. But then now that's the very subtle attribute, which quite frankly, you're going to have the sense of existence. You're going to have it because you're here. So that sense of existence is just unmixed. There's nothing mixed in it. But that is an attribute in the nothing that you are. In the attributeless, an attribute has come, this sense that you're the knower of, there's an attribute there. So all these other attributes are added on to that when there's a sense of existence, and then the I am somebody else. I am somebody else whose name is John, who has this job, who has this child, who has this and this and this. All these attributes are coming from the attributeless. But that's only in the appearance. Just like the dreamer who's dreaming, there are many things in the dream, trees and school and conversations and relationships and all this kind of stuff, but truly nothing is because it's the dreamer's projection. So there's no actual attributes, but there are attributes appearing in the dreamer's dream. Once you go into illusion. That's why Das Bode talks about this beautifully. It says in the beginning, there's nothing but Brahman. Only Brahman. And then there's a stirring in the illusion which creates wind. And then all the elements are created and such and such.
Oh, Brahman. Oh, okay.
Brahman, the name for God, Brahman, Atman, Paramatman. These are just the various names for the that you are that cannot be named, is invisible, unidentified identity that is labeled Brahman, Atman, Paramatman, God, you know, Shiva, whatever you want to call it.
Now, I wonder, how do you then feel like you are the background of all this? Then you use the term, then something is stirring. Somebody knocked on the door or a distraction or whatever. So when something is stirring, then how do you deal with that? How do you handle that?
Remain with the silent existence. I mean, if you remain with yourself, the stirring won't trouble you. The stirring can stir, but you're not in it. Remaining with that formless existence, that formless sense of presence, that I am that Nisargadatta Maharaj talks about, all of this appears on that, so you're not concerned. If there's a stirring, then observe the mantra being run, which it's running all the time. You know, observe breath or whatever you want to call it. But you remain formless. You just stay with the sense of existence. and keep brushing. Like we talked about the mirror, the sense of existence, absolutely perfectly clear, perfectly clean. You have perfectly identified yourself. Now, little dust particles and stuff get on the mirror, but you're not concerned with that because you know yourself in a real sense. These dust particles, and then the light hits the dust particles and they create all this little, whatever, the universe, but you remain with your selfless self. You remain knowing yourself in a real sense, the absolute clean mirror, knowing yourself perfectly, and all these things are just appearing, therefore you're not interested in them. And it really is like that. I mean, you'll see in your day-to-day activities that the story breaks. There's just you using the body to do what you need to do, and you won't be thinking about what you, it's you know, you can schedule appointments and just show up to the appointment without having to have thought, you know, for hours, oh, I hope this appointment goes well, or I hope this is good, or I haven't seen this person in a long time, maybe I should stop and get some gifts, or none of that is going, it's just not like that. You're sitting, basically, without moving, and as Maharaj says, things are moving around you, but you're not moving, and you just know this. You know that scenes are just appearing before you. You're in it, and then whoop, that's it. In it, and then it. But that's using this body because you're remaining with that sense of existence without any attributes added on to it. Just remaining with the pure sense of existence, knowing yourself perfectly, and not even have to thinking about knowing yourself perfectly because you have not created a knower to know yourself. This I am somebody else is not arising, so there's not an I am somebody else that's remaining perfectly with yourself. You just are. And from this position, you're just clearing, clearing, clearing. The mirror gets a little dusty, it gets brushed off. Okay, there's dust on the mirror, I brush off the mirror. I don't sit there and say, oh my God, there's dust on the mirror, and then start looking at all the dust. No, mirror gets dusty, I brush it off. Because like Maharaj says, and in your own experience, you'll see, as long as you're holding a body, there are things occurring around this body in this dream world, just as if you're the dreamer laying down dreaming. You're not just sitting there like on a park, even if you're in a dream sitting on a park bench, birds may fly by and poop on you. You know, joggers are jogging by. Activity is always occurring. Simply because it just does. But you're not in the activity. You're the formlessness that's providing the power and the energy for all of this activity, providing the power and the energy for mind, ego, intellect, and all these instruments that are of use, but are not you.
And you created the dust by paying attention to it.
Yeah, boy, that's how, if you pay attention to the dust on the mirror, the light hits it, it becomes the dust particles in the air that are absolutely totally illusion, but your attention is on them and you're investigating, where are these dust particles? What are they? Thus, the universe.
Yeah, you're creating, it's a creativity, well, unintentional maybe.
Because you don't know yourself, and then suddenly you do.
Yeah.
And then you won't. But since you've known yourself while you're in this appearance of knowing yourself, then you know that there had to be something prior to know yourself. There had to be something that you are, that was all of everything, where this appearance, and now you're in the appearance, knowing your formlessness, knowing the reality. And the reality is, prior to beingness and after leaving the body, nothing is there except your selfless self. There's no God, no Brahman, no Atman, no Paramatman, no Master. In between the nothing, there is the appearance of something, and there was attention paid to the appearance because there was a sudden realization of, oh, I exist. And as soon as I exist, the whole everything was created. Now, knowing yourself in a real sense, you're rolling back and remaining with the first touch. I exist. But I exist as, and no further. I exist. I am.
Now, let's say that somebody asked you to play a tennis game. That is an activity. Would you play, and you said yes, would you then play tennis as the selfless self?
Well, I mean, I can't not be the selfless self. So this would be an activity that I'd engage in and I'd play. I'd give 100% effort and attention in playing this game, whatever this is, this tennis. But then afterwards, it's finished. Maybe we go out for dinner or something afterwards, or maybe we just part and I never see the person again. It's only in the moment, and it's using the body as an instrument. What's right in front, you do, okay. But at the same time, you could decide not to do that, but you wouldn't be sitting there and trying to be the selfless self, because you are the selfless self. And you may even in that moment have thoughts of, oh man, this person's way better than me in tennis. That's okay. There's a thought that's arising, but there's not a lot of attention believed in for it. The activities are occurring using this body form. But you're not so attached or involved in it. It's just an activity. You play and that's finished. Just like I go to work every day. Every day I walk into my office, I sit at my desk, I do what's right in front of me, I close down, I leave the work, and it's finished. The same thing. Play the tennis and then finish.
But in that moment, when you say you play a game of tennis, you also count.
You also what?
You count when you win the, you're 30-30, you're 30-60, whatever. But throughout the activity, you just remain your selfless self, and you watch the countings or the score happening on the scoreboard without, any investment in anything. And yet you play the game the best as you can.
Yeah, in the moment you play the game the best that you can. But you're not thinking that you're remaining the selfless self. You know yourself in a real sense. You are the selfless self. And all of this is just occurring in the illusion, and you're using this body in the illusion, just like if you were the dreamer and you were dreaming of having a tennis match. You wouldn't keep saying, even if you knew, like, oh, this is just a dream and I'm just playing dream tennis. No, enjoy. Enjoy the tennis match for the moment. Give 100% effort. And afterwards, it's finished. And whether you win or lose, you're not sitting there replaying it in your head. And that's not kind of a... Go ahead.
No, I meant that you score. When you play a game, you score. And,
okay.
So you're involved in that score. You want to win the game, right? I mean... You still want to win the game. So if you do want to win the game, there is a personal aspect to that, to winning.
No. I mean, you just, again, it's just an activity. It's just like there's no personal aspect to picking up this water and drinking it. I may want to drink it fast. I may want to drink it slow, whatever, but there's no kind of personal touch. There's no need to create a personal thing. Now, if you're super competitive and you get angry about the game, and when you're sitting in your car, you're driving and you're like, never going to play tennis with that guy again. I hate this guy, blah, blah, blah. That's a problem. But
somebody else.
Yeah, that's an I am somebody else. But again, just like you can use a hammer and hammer a few nails, or you can build a house. The activity is just using an instrument to do something, and it's no worries. Absolutely. And you can remain with just that formless sense of existence while in activity. Activity is still occurring. You're using this form to do this activity, but there's no attachment to the activity. given the example of what you talked about, if a thought stream was going while playing tennis, the thought stream might be, wow, I'm really good. Or, wow, I'm not so good. I should take lessons. Or, wow, I'm good enough. Maybe I could be a professional tennis player. And you'll see, like they call it daydreaming, you'll sit there and create this whole experience and this whole world of what a great tennis player you are. And you might even be able to make the pros. That would be an attachment to the activity, and I am somebody else forming that is desiring to acquire things, rather than the selfless self using this body as an instrument to perform an activity which could be quite enjoyable.
Well, I didn't mean that you take it that far. I meant that you have a scoreboard, you play a game. So you have a scoreboard. You can play any game. Say you want to play Monopoly with your son.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment you play Monopoly, are you there to win the game? Still selfless self, it doesn't matter, but still there is a, I don't know, a wish to, you're playing it. That's all I'm saying. Not that you're going to be calm or you daydream about this and that. I'm just saying you're playing a competitive game, whether it be Monopoly or it be a game of tennis.
Yeah, whatever you're doing, you can do it 100%. Because again, just because you know yourself in a real sense doesn't mean you're not going to engage and participate in the world. You're just not going, in the world, but not of it. You're not going to take the touch of the world, but you're going to fully participate. You're not just going to be like, I'm not doing this, or this isn't spiritual, or anything like that. You can do all activities, whatever you feel like doing. Go to a baseball game, go to a football game, root and cheer for your home team, because you are the selfless self. You're not thinking that you're the selfless self. You are the selfless self. And all of this is in the illusion, but while it's in the illusion and you're using this body form, why not? Why not participate? But you're just not taking the touch, and there's scenes passing, even this tennis match, keeping score and being 100% attentive. That scene passes and it's finished, it's gone. There's no footprint in memory. And that's what I was describing in the footprint in memory of the daydreaming of either I need to take lessons or wow, I'm so good. That's the footprint in memory with an I am somebody else projecting.
Yeah, I hear you.
And see, the idea that am I the selfless self on such and such an occasion, or if I do this, am I still, you're always the selfless self. That invisible listener, that invisible observer is observing all of this activity while using this instrument to perform these different details. When they say there's no doer, there's because there's nothing actually occurring. This is an appearance, just like the dream. The dreamer is not doing anything, although he may, dream that he's swimming or boating or doing whatever. But the dreamer itself is not actually doing anything, because this is the appearance in the nothing. You're not doing anything. There's no way you can do anything. But while using this body as an instrument in this appearance and knowing yourself in a real sense, you can enjoy.
Couldn't you say, in a sense, then, that you become the doing itself? You become the match, the tennis match itself. Whatever activity you are in, you become that activity itself, without any daydreaming or anything, but you become that. That itself is the selfless self.
Well, I mean, everything is occurring inside, just like the dreamer. All of the activity is occurring inside the dreamer. But see, there's not really a cognitive thinking about that. There's just there's not enough of you there to form a thought. It's like the razor's edge of reality is too thin for a you. It's just
but
keys.
I don't mean that there's thoughts if you become the activity itself.
But to become the activity itself, you'd have to separate yourself from the activity and become that activity. But you're just, again, formlessly aware, all the activities, all the things that are going on inside of you, including this form that you're using to perform the activities, but there's no thought about it. There's no cognitive kind of thinking of, I am one with everything. There could be originally, there's a feeling, I am one with everything, because in that sense of existence, an attribute has been added on of, I am one with everything. But when you're one with everything, like Maharaj says, you're a woman and you don't have to keep saying, I'm a woman, I'm a woman, I'm a woman. I'm performing this as a woman. These are the things, this is the way a woman would behave. You just have the spontaneous conviction and move with that. So there's no real thought process of, you know, saying that this is all part of me or this is this, or
No,
you're just formlessly aware using form. And actually any idea like this, you would say prior to beingness and after leaving the body, there's nothing. In the appearance, there's something. I remain with that formless sense of existence without any attributes added on. And then I can't really say anything about the illusion. It's just there. It's not going anywhere, but I remain with my selfless self. And I don't try to analyze anything. It's just not, because it's all illusion. So there's no need to analyze it. There's no need to understand it or to give descriptions or concepts or similes. I stay with my selfless self. Illusion is illusion. It can be described 100,000 different ways, but I don't want a stirring. I want to keep with the sense of existence. Just, I exist. But I just, that formless sense of existence. Nothing. Nothing added on. No thoughts. No stirring. No nothing. Just, I am.
But as you talk now, the dialogue with me now, where are you right now? As you are talking. I mean, just exactly, just talking, just dialoguing. Isn't that a dialogue that is just one dialogue? It's you and it's me, but essentially it's just one dialogue, dialoguing with itself, in a sense, you can say.
Yes, bodies are different, presence is one. Remove the presence from this body, remove the presence from that body, and they're dead bodies, just two lumps of the 5 elements conglomerated. It's the presence that activates and is doing the speaking. It's only one. Believing itself to be different through, because instead of just the sense of existence, there's the sense of existence as something that other things are added on to, and concepts are believed in, conditioning believed in, are creating the idea of separateness where there is none.
Yeah.
John,
Yes.
it's almost time.
Oh yeah, it's 8:13. Okay. Good, good, good.
Okay.
Very great.
Is everybody okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
We promise
Good,
not to
good.
keep it on for too long.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you.
Great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Everyone have a good evening.
Okay.
Yeah, it's